Hey, what's up, good people? It's Rob Lee. First of all, I want to say that this is going to be a kind of a long video, not awfully long, but it's going to be in parts. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie it all together for you. It's about an act that was put forth in Congress on February the 28th of 2018. And I'm going to tie it together with the tribulation and with guns and with something called Operation Urban Shield. And intense times need intense training, huh? First of all, let me say that I appreciate the support from the people with my last video, The Devil's Own or God's Chosen. I feel like it was really blessed by the Father, and it was something that I was supposed to do. And I really appreciate it, and I give praise to my Almighty Father in the name of Jesus Christ. As you take a look at this beautiful child right here, even the most hardened of men gets a good feeling inside. And we never really thought that we would have to, on our own shore, have to defend ourselves and especially our children from people that look just like us. But this may be what's coming, people. In fact, I believe that it is. And I'm not trying to tell you to freak out or anything, because I've never told you that. I don't wish to see any person, and especially children, killed by crazy, evil people with guns. And I want to say this up front. I don't care what your color, your religious, or your political views are. No son of Yah desires innocent blood, and especially for the little ones. However, I believe in the right to defend ourselves. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. Let me read something to you before we go further, and I think that you'll understand where this is going. This was from 1787. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed. As they are in almost every kingdom in Europe, the supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are armed. Noah Webster of Pennsylvania, An Examination of the Leading Principles of the Federal Constitution, Philadelphia, 1787. When the resolution of enslaving America was formed in Great Britain, the British Parliament was advised by an artful man, who was governor of Pennsylvania, to disarm the people, that it was best and the most effectual way to enslave them, but that they should not do it openly, but weaken them and let them sink gradually. Think about that, folks. Weaken them, let them sink gradually. Incredibly telling, isn't it? Most people, folks, when it comes to guns, most people know the truth about guns. Guns are not toys and should not be in the hands of crazy or unstable people. And it's sad that we actually have to say this as responsible gun owners, but there's something way bigger here, way bigger. This is a far deeper and more sinister issue than just guns. Now, for some folks who have been brought to the truth, some people who have eyes to see know that many incidents that we see on TV are nothing more than hoaxes and state-sponsored propaganda. However, let's make a point and say that all the shootings are genuine. They're not. I could prove 5 out of 10 as hoaxes easy. Well, let's say that they are genuine. Let's look at some gun facts, people. In 2016, all long guns, not just AR-15s, in the United States committed 374 murders. Your chances of being murdered by an AR-15 are less than 0.0001% based on a population of 323 million people in 2016. There are an estimated 8 million AR-15s in the United States. That means that 7,999,626 AR-15s, assuming all the long guns were actually AR-15s, were not used in a homicide. So more people are killed with knives than long rifles. The total homicide rate with all firearms was 11,004, and predominantly this was by handguns. Yes, people, handguns. This was done by handguns. This number is not inflated by suicides, accidental deaths, and justifiable homicides, which the progressives include. Compare this to 40,200 deaths from auto accidents the same year, should we ban cars too. Now, I'm a big opponent of cigarette smoking. I hate it. I smoked for 15 years. It's one of the things that I'm most ashamed of because it was incredibly weak of me. Each year, folks, a couple 100,000 people either die or have some sort of a disease because of smoking. Why not we get rid of cigarettes? It's far more dangerous. How about the metals in our food? Or how about the fluoride, which does just as much damage to us every single day as the cigarette smoking? Why don't we get rid of that? You see, because it's the same monsters that want to take your guns who are also trying to kill you slowly. It's called problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, lie and convince you to let them fix it. The monsters who create hell are now fixing it. Back to the hoaxes with the guns and all these shootings. Folks, there is a law, there is an act. It's called the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012. Now, you should, if you're going to do something in the next couple of days, why don't you take 10 minutes of your time and look up the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012. HR 5736, the Modernization Act of 2012, and you will find out, folks, that it is legal. Listen to what I'm telling you. State-sponsored hoaxes are legal, folks. That's right. State-sponsored hoaxes are legal. And one of their favorites is called the Son of Man hoax. Maybe we'll get into it at another time, certainly on my website. This is to control the people, control the masses, you understand, to control the people's thoughts and control their movements and to put them on a side against the true Christians and against the true patriots. This is what this is designed for. The Babylonian-owned media, both mainstream and alternative, both left and right, because there is no difference. They control it all. And they will push the narrative of lies and deceit about hoaxes and the gun violence by the so-called unhinged groups, which are now called Christians and patriots. And all throughout the evil spectrum, Satan's little helpers and his servants will join in to support the cause to destroy the United States of America and the people, because Babylon knows the truth about who's who in this world. Then you can enter in Hollywood. The hypocrisy of the Hollywood liberals, demons, and I mean this literally when I call them demons. They are called stars for a reason, people. The book of Revelation said 1/3 of the stars fell. With the one called the dragon, when these demonic beings fell, they took on the name star as a way to mock you. And they believe that they should be able to profit from their demonic movies that glorify gun violence while chastising you, the responsible gun owner, at the same time. Yet the public lines up to buy the tickets, and they're going to continue to. There is something sickening, personally, for me, about Jamie Foxx pretending to be a tough guy. It's just tough for me to even look at him in the picture, because he's a Pop-Tart. He's soft in the middle. In my world, he'd run, and I do mean literally. And why did I put that in? Because some of these monsters I loathe far more than others. I simply do. And it has nothing to do with him being black. I just don't like him personally. Something about him pisses me off. Just let me say this, folks, that it's no secret that Babylon controls all of Hollywood. They also control the gaming industry in the United States. Now, most people don't think about the gaming industry enough, but adults, yes, adults and children are exposed to nonstop murder and brutality by the same sadistic devils who scream for gun control as they fake cry after we are exposed to usually a state-sponsored hoax, a la the Smith-Mundt Act. This hypocrisy is spoken of by the Father and Jesus the Christ many times. This kind of deceit and demonic hypocrisy can only come from the tares. We are the wheat, they are the tares. Those that are destined to be tossed into the fire and burned, Matthew 13:34 through 50. I'm going to share with you a three-pronged attack by the devil and his children against the children of the Almighty Father. This includes true Christian believers, patriots, truth tellers, truth seekers, and those who simply disagree with the country. The attack is threefold. The first is to silence you by instilling fear in you. The second is to condemn you and label you a terrorist if you have the courage to speak up. The third is to turn the rest of the country against you and lump you in with the real hate-filled people. However, it's ironic because no person on their best day, people, can be more diabolical and evil than the devil's children and his little special followers. These are the same wretched monsters and cursed beings who murdered Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all, folks. Nothing. And now, good people, we're going to look at the future law that changes all. And I believe that this bill will be implemented, and I believe that it is the catalyst that is going to send us into the tribulation. This is my personal belief. I'm not a prophet. Nothing. I'm just telling you this is my personal belief as a son of the Almighty Father. An evil and grossly unfair bill is targeting millions of peaceful Americans who identify with being Bible-believing Christians. All right. Now, this is different from the typical building dweller who has not yet been called to the truth. And this bill targets patriots also by lumping them in with extremely rare violent hate groups. The Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2018, folks, introduced on February the 28th in the House, is making true Christians, patriot groups, gun owners, homeschoolers, anti-vaxxers, citizen militias, and even just regular folks uneasy. The reason being is that this demonic bill targets them. It targets you, if you're listening to me. As the bill's summary notes, the purpose of the legislation is, and I want you to listen to me, people, and this is why I put it on the screen so you can read it for yourselves, to authorize dedicated, notice the word dedicated, to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism offices within the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism. Now, while on the surface this sounds like a rational idea, right? But let's dig deeper into the bill. And we soon discover just what they mean by preventing domestic terrorism. Now, I urge you to look this bill up for yourself and actually read it. Quit watching bullshit YouTube videos about some of these monsters and actually do some work. And no, I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm simply trying to tell you to put in some work. According to the FBI, now listen to me again, people, and I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can read it. According to the FBI, the definition of a domestic terrorist is individuals and or groups inspired by, associated with primarily U.S.-based movements that espouse extremist ideologies of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. Think about that, folks. Me, you, could be a terrorist because I know Scripture, because I love Jesus Christ. Think about where this is going, people. Think. The bill goes on to further credit the Southern Poverty Law Center. Of all the credit to give to anybody, this is a group who is openly, listen to me, people, the SPLC is openly anti-Jesus Christ. The enemy of Jesus Christ is now deciding who the enemies of this country are. Look at the logos of the SPLC. Look at it, folks. First of all, it's an owl. This is owl symbolism. This is Moloch. But this is not the scales of justice. It's also the two pyramids. And it's a hexagram. It's clever, but not clever enough. It's a way of saluting their father, the devil. And if you have any doubts, read Amos 5 and Acts 7. The SPLC also makes hundreds of millions of dollars, people. And they peddle hate. And they label anyone that disagrees with them as a hate group. So if you disagree with them, you and I, we are part of a hate group. And again, let me say it again, because it's worth repeating. They make hundreds of millions of dollars, which are held in offshore accounts. Folks, I did the research. This is the kind of research that I do. I don't watch Round Saturn's Eye or some of these other bullshit people, Mark Taylor. I do the research, man. And I want you to do it. Do the research. Quit being so entertained, man. Quit being so enthralled in watching serpents on YouTube. I'm not trying to chastise you. I'm trying to help you. Listen to what I'm telling you, folks. It's on their tax forms. It cannot be denied. Morris Dees, the SPLC's co-founder, promised to stop fundraising once his endowment hit $55 million. But when it reached $55 million, he upped the bar to $100 million. Then it went to $200 million. Now it's at $320 million. They're going toward $500 million, people. That's a lot of power. What's also particularly disturbing about the SPLC is the fact that they fail to make any mention of an openly violent and hateful group that has been caught time and time again, destroying property and trying to harm innocent people with whom they disagree. This is the radical group called Antifa. Yes, Antifa is conveniently absent from this bill, and there are actually videos on my channel of Antifa. However, the satanic SPLC saw fit to make sure that they included patriots, gun owners, and most of all, Christians on their list. The bottom line here, folks, is this, that there are crazy and evil people who kill innocent people for no reason. This is a violent world. There have been horrific incidents of people snapping and killing citizens and police alike. However, it is neither the tens of millions of other people who identify as Christians and patriots, nor the tens of thousands of militia groups, and I've been hard on the militia groups, but they should be afforded every other right as every other American. These are not the groups that are doing this. Again, there are hate groups who attack innocent people, and it should be prevented. The problem is that we as Christians and patriots, we are the ones who are going to be attacked. You see, by lumping everyone together with a few deranged people, you can now implement the war on Christians, patriots, and those who peacefully disagree or refuse to be a part of the system if they so choose. It's dangerous, and it is Orwellian, and it is part of a diabolical plan, people, to reduce people to scared zombies. Let me ask you a question. Who's more dangerous, the people or those implementing this sadistic evil bill? I want you to just think about what I just said to you. Who's more dangerous, the people or the wretched beast who are trying to implement this bill that I believe will be a law, and Donald Trump will make it happen? It's important to note that most people who question the state do so out of a desire to prevent death and not cause it. People who question the narrative of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq did so because they wanted to prevent a war in which many people would die. Now, remember when this happened, people were labeled as kooks, conspiracy theorists by the establishment, despite being proven right years later. Remember, we went to war with Iraq under the premise of weapons of mass destruction. There were no damn weapons of mass destruction. Many innocent lives lost, children murdered, children denied medicine, clothing, food, and you'll say, well, they're Muslim. Listen to me. If you really think like that, man, leave my channel. Because that's not serving Jesus Christ. I know what the Bible teaches all the way through. I know what my father said in the Old Testament. I know what Jesus Christ says about being kind to the stranger, about being kind to the Samaritan. Even if they're not like us, we do not go and brutally murder innocent children. Wow. Billions of dollars were spent to appease the Babylonian war machine. And by the way, with Patriot Acts 1 and 2, we lost more of our freedoms. You see, the serpent has been steadily trying to destroy us. Let me ask you something, people. Do you think the SPLC will label Israel or the federal corporate states of America as terrorists? Hell no. But in the eyes of the Almighty Father, they are devils who are doomed. The book of Jude says they are twice dead and plucked up by the roots. Before closing, I want us to look at something called Operation Urban Shield, and then we'll tie it all this together, and I'll conclude by telling you what our defense is, because we have the ultimate weapon if we will simply use it. You know, good people, before we look at Operation Urban Shield, I want to take you back just for a minute, and I want to take you back to the wars in Iraq. And, you know, has it occurred to you that the reason that Babylon went back into Iraq, because we know that these people who call themselves Babylonians, because that's who they really are. Why do you think they went back to Iraq? People say it was for oil. Well, it's possible. Money. Follow the money. There was also something else going on that most people don't understand. You see, the devil and his children were kicked out of Iraq a long time ago. This was the devil's way of going back. Now, I know you can say, well, that's far-fetched. Quite frankly, I don't care. I understand the spiritual war. This was their way of going back, because Babylon is significant for them, because that was their ancient capital. All right, folks, let's move on to Operation Urban Shield. Every fall, folks, police departments from around the nation gather at Urban Shield. Now, let me say, I'm not anti-police. There are some good law enforcement officers. I exchanged an email the other day with a special agent here where we live. We grew up together. Different type of people, but we grew up together. I like him. I care for him. I care for his children. He's a good man. However, there are some incredibly rotten apples, man. Incredibly rotten apples. A joint venture of Homeland Security and the private arms sector gather. And they come from all over the nation, people. And they come to these expos, and they're more like a tactical training boot camp and a display convention rolled into one. And cops from all over the country, they receive special training from the Israeli Defense Forces. That's exactly right. And you think about this, what's going on in Israel. Barbed wire, police state, all to hell, on steroids, and they're trying to bring it here, and they are going to. They try out all kinds of exotic weapons once reserved for the military that are now typical of basic squad cars. Basic squad cars, folks. Much of the gear will never come in handy, folks, on a ordinary normal police mission. But that doesn't mean that it won't be used on American civilians, now will it? Urban Shield was started in 2007 to meet the needs and desires of an increasingly militarized police force. Since when did municipal and state police dress like soldiers? Have you seen the way these cops are dressing now? They're like RoboCops, man. Why are cops treating unarmed citizens like enemy combatants? And where did they get all this elaborate war machinery to begin with? Well, you got to go back to 1989 for George Bush Sr., when he kicked off the robo-transformation in 1989, when he doubled the amount of federal money allocated to the local law enforcement as a part of an effort to appear tough on urban crime, especially the drug trade. The next summer in Massachusetts, the police flew Army helicopters above a Grateful Dead show in order to identify drug dealers. Raids on potential stash houses, which with the explosion of crack cocaine in the early 90s, became the anti-drug policing tactic du jour. Now, the cops who conducted them were increasingly outfitted in expensive, intimidating, and unnecessary gear straight out of Desert Storm. In 1997, Congress created the 1033 program. There it is. Of course, you're going to know that the demonic numbers are there. There's your 13, there's your 33, there's your 1/3, 1033 program. Why did they call it 1044, 1055? Because it's a demonic number. And if you haven't watched my videos about the 33 code, you're really missing out, because nobody on the internet, and no, I'm not boasting, I'm only telling you I know what my father showed me. Nobody on the internet has busted codes as well as me. And I don't take any credit, because I asked my father to show me, and he showed me. So with the 1033 program, it allowed the military to transfer its equipment to law enforcement agencies. Since then, folks, more than $4 billion worth of war machinery, which is the $4 billion is reported, but quite frankly, it seems kind of small, of war machinery has gone to law enforcement agencies around the country. Now, after the great lie of September the 11th, 2001, suddenly every city was in need of a local army just in case terrorism hit home, right? Homeland security. Preparedness was a new buzzword, and it continues to justify the acquisition of armored tanks, sniper rifles, bayonets, 3D printed drones, and whatever else is hot in the arms industry. Armored vehicles and tanks have become staples for police forces. Terrorist attacks don't happen on American soil. And it's an asinine lie for anybody to think that a foreign government are going to come to the United States and try to take us over. We are the most armed country on this earth, man. I'm not saying there may be some little isolated events here and there, but no foreign power will come here and take us over. We can only be taken over from within. Now, the logic, folks, the logical results in the police bringing unnecessary and dangerous equipment with them on missions inside of the American neighborhoods is that imagine what the people think now when they see the law enforcement come, cops, police, whatever you want to call it, when they don't see what they deem as police, they see the freaking military rolling up on. After 3 decades of an increase in militarization, there's been not just a change, folks, in the equipment and the vehicles that the police use, but there's also been a change in their attitudes. Many current law enforcement officers and agents at all levels, they're anti-Christians and they're anti-Constitution. Remember who does the training, people? The Israeli Defense Forces. Do you think this is a coincidence? And is it a coincidence that we have this new potential law called the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2018? Do you really think this is a coincidence, people? The entire Bible, people, is the story of the devil's family trying to fight the family of the Almighty Father. Genesis 3:14 and 15. And many people can't wrap their heads around this. They want to explain it away. And listen, man, believe what you want to believe. It's up to you. That's your privilege. Believe what you want to believe. What I want to do now is that we're not going to lose, people, but we have to endure to the very end because it's our Father's will that we do so. So I'd like to close now, and I would like to leave you with some thoughts and images. You see, folks, all this bill does, and I believe it is going to become a law, it's going to blur the lines between real extremists and true Christians and patriots and freedom-loving activists. Because after all, if the Babylonian tyrants can associate hate and extremism with the ideas of peace and liberty, the herd will be far easier to keep under control, and they will have no problem giving away their rights to fight this non-existent threat. The bill, which I believe will become law under Trump, and how the MAGA brethren, and I love many of them, how incredibly painful the lesson is going to be for them in trusting a serpent. Brethren, we as a family and as individuals have been fighting these same sick, vile creatures since we were put here by our Father. This has been going on for longer than I think most people than we can really comprehend. They are a corrupt seed, and the ones who fell, and they have a slew of family and followers all over this earth. They mock the naive and ignorant on a daily basis. We've been fighting the dragon, aka the serpent, for longer, I'm telling you folks, than we can imagine, because we have lost so much of our history. This battle is ancient between the children of the light and the children of the darkness, and is coming to a conclusion. And I humbly ask you, with the Father's help, to awaken to the enemy that walks among you, and so you can see the truth about the world that you live in. Time is ticking, and it's past time for the family of the Father to get right with your Father, to get right with Him, to come to Him, to embrace Him. And when you embrace Him, hold on. We are the wheat and they are the tares, people. And when you come to your Father, you come to Him in the name of Jesus Christ, because there is no other name under heaven and which shall be saved. Jesus Christ. As much as people want to use Yahweh, Yahweh, whatever, Yahuwah, Almighty Yah, He gave all the power to His Son. Matthew 28 tells us that Jesus Christ has been given all power. You heard me, all power. Yahushua has been given all power. Revelation 19:14 through 19 tells us that He is going to destroy them with blood to the horse's bridle and tread the winepress of the wrath of the Almighty Father. We are seeing the devil and its children line up against us, as in Psalms chapter 2. And we must endure to the very end. We have all we need, folks, in Jesus the Christ. And don't you dare forget it, and don't you ever dare doubt it. All power has been given unto our King. Let me say it for you again. All power has been given unto your King. Your King is Jesus the Christ, and He has all the power. Embrace Him. Embrace Him while you can. May the Father bless you all in Jesus' name.